Dear students, in the previous videos we finished the second poem which is there in our intermediate second year syllabus, and now today if we come back to the prose part, so we are going to deal with the first essay which we have in our syllabus. And so the essay is Of Studies, and which is written by Francis Bacon. So we are going to deal with Of Studies, which is written by Francis Bacon. And so before going to deal with the explanation of Studies, so let us know something about the writer Francis Bacon, and then let us come back to the explanation of this particular essay. So let us understand something about Francis Bacon first. So I'm not going to deal with the author much, but I will give some important points, and then let us not spend much time understanding about the author, as we have less time to deal with the explanation part. And so let me read 3 to 4 lines in the about the author, and then let us go to the explanation. Here, look at that. So Francis Bacon was a great English philosopher, statesman, and a pioneer of modern scientific thought. So we see that Francis Bacon was a great English philosopher who is a person who thinks very deeply about life. So he is a English philosopher and statesman. Statesman means a political leader, a politician, and he is a philosopher and politician and a pioneer of modern scientific thought. So pioneer means forerunner, or we can also say he is the first person who has come with modern scientific thought. So he is the leader of this particular thought, modern scientific thought, and he is regarded as the father of English essay. Remember this. This is very important point. That is, he is regarded as the father of English essay. And then in the next paragraphs we see that he worked in different areas in the royal court of England, and as he was the politician. And we see that some more important writings we can find of Sir Francis Bacon. And then let us come back to the last point, which is connected with this particular essay which is meant for us. The present essay of studies is taken from his book Essays or Counsels, Civil and Moral. Civil and Moral. So this present essay of studies is taken from his book. There is a book which was written by Sir Francis Bacon, and we see that this particular essay is taken out of this book, Essays or Counsels, Civil and Moral. So this is somewhat a brief introduction to Sir Francis Bacon. And remember that he is called as the father of English essay, and he is the pioneer of modern scientific thought. He is the statesman, he is a philosopher, and the present essay is taken out of Essays or Counsels, Civil and Moral. So this is what is about Francis Bacon, and he is also from England. So just remember that. And next, let us come back to the explanation part. So this off studies deals with the importance of reading or importance of studies and every aspect which deals with studies. Yes, let me ask you some questions before going to deal with the explanation of the essay. So here the writer asked some questions. Do you have the habit of reading books? Yes, we are lacking it. So nowadays we don't spend much time reading books, but we have different habits which are of no use. And next, do you agree that nowadays majority of the people are losing the habit of reading books? Yes, definitely. Everybody agrees that because of television, because of mobile phones, because of these computers and social media and so on, definitely we are lacking or losing the habit of reading books. Next, do you know there are lots of benefits in studies? So here in this particular essay, writer talks about many benefits because of these studies. And do studies cure illness? So this is one more important and surprising thing, that is studies can cure diseases, it seems. So how can studies cure diseases? Let us understand in this particular essay. Yes, let me go to deal with the explanation of the essay. I'm starting. Listen to the explanation carefully. Studies serve for delight, for ornament, and for ability. Their chief use for delight is in privateness and retiring. So, uh, listen to me. So, studies have three benefits which are talked here. So, what are they? Studies serve for delight, for happiness. Studies does not mean that don't treat it as only education. Even here, we can understand that studies means reading. Reading serves for delight, that means happiness, and for ornament, and for ability. Ornament. Ornament means as a type of what you call showing of yourself. So it gives us what you call as um, so it is a type of showing of yourself. And for ability, so being able to do something, so studies help us in that. And next, their chief use for delight is in privateness. So uh, for delight, how studies give us delight and where studies give us delight is in privateness. That means when you are alone and nobody is there with you, and so if you want to be happy, so actually in privateness we cannot be happy. But uh, because of the studies or reading helps us to be happy and to be delighted when we are alone. And retiring, retiring means after retirement, or when you are taking rest after finishing heavy work. So studies gives us delight when we are in privateness, when you are alone, and when you are retired of work. And next, for ornament is in discourse. So discourse means here speech. So studies can help as ornament when we are in discourse. That means speech. So when we are speaking and when we are in debates, and when we are talking something on a particular uh, topic. So if you have read the information about that particular topic, and if you have much knowledge over it, and uh, so the studies or the reading which you spend the time, that helps you as ornament, and for ability is in the judgment and disposition of business. So studies also help for ability is in the judgment and disposition of business. When you're judging someone or something, so the studies help us to be able to judge, and to disposition of business. Disposition means arrangement. So arrangement of business. So how to arrange the things, and how to go by, and how to be successful in the business of things. So studies help us to be able to do that. So here in these first three lines we understand some information about how studies uh, help us to be delighted, and for ornament, and for ability. And so next, for expert men can execute and perhaps judge of particulars one by one, but the general counsels and the plots and marshalling of affairs come best from those that are learned. See here, uh, there is what we call as 2 points which are talked. For expert men can execute. Experts can execute out of their experience, so they can perform, and they can judge of particulars one by one. So with the experience we can judge the things, and we can solve the problems perhaps one by one. But general counsels, that means general ideas or general suggestions, and the plots means solving problems, and marshalling of affairs means controlling of particular work, controlling of affairs, come best from those that are learned. So experts can execute and judge of particulars one by one, but this experience of these experts may not help in general counseling, in giving general counseling, and in solving problems, and in marshalling or controlling of affairs. So that experience may not help, but the person who is learned, that means who is studied, can do all these three things: giving general counsels, and solving problems, and arranging of things. So this is what we can find uh, here in these two lines. Next, so one idea is over in these four lines, and next the writer goes to the next idea. So let us deal with that. And here, if you go to the fifth line, to spend too much time in studies is sloth. So to use them too much for ornament is affectation. To spend too much time in studies is sloth. Sloth means laziness. So if you spend too much time reading a book, it leads to laziness. So here the negative effects of studies are talked in the first four lines, or especially in the first three lines. We can understand that what are the uses of studies, and now what are the disadvantages of studies. So Here, if you can understand that, to spend too much time in studies is laziness. So, if you are spending a lot of time in studies or in reading, it makes you lazy, and to use them too much for ornament is affectation. So some people they read and read and read, and they take several points which are unnecessary also, and they want to include them in their speech. So it is like no showing off. So what is affectation? Affectation means you are not sincere, and whatever you are talking is, it's not out of your wit, it's not out of your mind, but you are taking somebody's point, and you're talking, and so it is not sincere what you're talking, and it is artificial. So if you're using these studies too much for ornament, so if you're spending time too much in studies, it is a loss. And if you're using them too much for ornament, so it is affectation. And next, to make judgment wholly by their rules is the humor of a scholar. And some people, definitely studies help us to judge and solve particular problems, because we have seen that here only studies serve for ability to judge the particulars, and for the disposition of business. But some people, they judge wholly by their rules. By their rules, there refers to studies. So based on the what you call these studies and their rules, especially they depend only on studies, only on reading. So to judge the things. So if you depend on studies only to judge or to solve particular problems, it is the humor of a scholar. Humor means it is a foolishness of a scholar. And so, what the writer wants to say here is, we must not make judgments out of studies, but there must be some judgments which have to be done out of experience of life. And so, here, if you make judgment wholly by their rules, so it is the foolishness of a scholar. And next, they perfect nature and are perfected by experience. They means studies. Studies perfect nature. Nature means attitude or inner abilities. So if a person has to be perfect, so it is with the help of studies. So study is perfect nature or attitude of a person, and are perfected by experience. See, these studies also have to be perfected, because studies only cannot be perfect. So they are perfected by experience. That means in life we need these two things, studies as well as experience. They go side by side. One cannot stand without the other. Studies must have experience, and experience must have studies. And so, for natural abilities are like natural plants that need pruning by study. So, natural abilities are like natural plants that need pruning by study. That means we have natural abilities in our inner self, and so these natural abilities are like natural plants. Plants you see everywhere, which are natural plants, they grow um, so at any cost, but that need pruning by study. See, these natural plants can also be beautiful, can also uh, help to have a beautiful garden. And so how means they need pruning. So pruning means cutting some branches to grow better. So here we see that these natural abilities which a person has are like natural plants, and for that uh, we need to cut which are unnecessary so that the plant grows further better. That means here we can understand that these studies help us to shape our inner character and to grow a better person. Next, studies themselves do give forth directions too much at large, except they be bounded in by experience. So, uh, studies without experience, the release, give forth means release, directions too much at large. So, more than requirement. Too much at large means more than requirement. So, actually, studies release several directions. Uh, so, how these directions have to be controlled. That means for example, if you know a particular place and you know different ways to go or to reach that particular place, because you know and you know about the area and you visited many times and so on, but uh, we don't think that that makes us confused. How means as we know different ways to go a particular place, will be confused which way to take. And so, studies release many directions generally, but experience is needed uh, because to take a bold step, to take a proper direction to reach particular goal. So, experience is necessary. So, this is what he says in the next four lines. He talks about studies and experience, and he says that studies without experience is not good, and even experience without studies cannot help. So, studies must go side by side with experience. So, this is what uh, he says, the writer says, Francis Bacon, until this particular line. And next, crafty men contemn studies, simple men admire them, and wise men use them. So, this is the second annotation which you have. So the first annotation is studies serve for delight, for ornament, and for ability. Second annotation is crafty men contemn studies, simple men admire them, and wise men use them. Crafty men means dishonest men. So they contemn studies, shrewd men. They contemn studies. Contempt means dislike studies. Simple men admire them, and wise men use them. See, uh, here we see that three types of people. Those are, one particular type is crafty men. Crafty men, they dislike studies, they hate studies, and say that studies cannot help. And simple men admire them. Those who are uneducated, they say that yes, because of studies, there is what do you call much benefit. They praise these studies because they are simple men, but wise men use them. That means wise men will study, and wise men use uh, the things whatever they studied. Out of them, they use their practical knowledge, and they become successful. So here this is what he says. And For they teach not their own use, but that is a wisdom without them, and above them won by observation. Studies cannot teach their own use. Studies cannot teach, but we need to observe, and we need to understand that because of these studies there is much use. Next, read not to contradict and confute, not to believe and take for granted, not to find talk and discourse, but to weigh and consider. So he comes to one more point saying that we must not read to contradict and confute. So some people read books or a particular uh, writing of a particular person only to oppose his point of view and only to prove that whatever he has written is wrong. And you must not read like that. You must not read to believe and take for granted. And some more people, they read whatever they read and they believe that that is true. That is true, and they take for granted. Not to find talk and discourse. Some people, they study and they read only because they want to talk, but read to weigh and consider. Weigh means how much value those studies have, and you need to consider them. In other words, we need to see what is right and what is wrong in whatever we study. We need to filter. We need to filter and take only the right things and good things and leave the unnecessary things. So we must not oppose, we must not read to oppose and uh, prove the writer's view as wrong, and we must not believe and take for granted whatever is written by the writer is true. No, and we must not read to talk and to debate, but we need to read because we need to consider what is right and what is wrong and what is good and what is bad in that particular book, in that particular text, and we need to take only the good and we need to leave the unnecessary bad. So here we understand that these we must not read for different reasons, but our reason must be to take right and to leave bad. So until this we finished almost half of the essay. So just try to understand, and so it may help us to understand the annotations and questions well, so that you can write the exams well. Thank you.